So some of you might have seen, this weekend I went to the Islamic protests against Emmanuel Macron and France. It was on Facebook Live. If you're watching this YouTube or somewhere else, you can link to the Facebook page, follow, like, watch the whole thing there. I want to go over what my impressions of the protest were, the problems I have with it, where I thought they were being intellectually dishonest, and sort of recap some of the, the friends I made along the way, because there were invitations from multiple people to continue the conversation. I did pick it up, so I do appreciate that. And if there are any of the, organizers of this protest, you come across this video, you want to talk to me about my conclusions, feel free to message me. I'd love to have you. Now, the first thing I'm going to point out is the the picture I used as the thumbnail for this video, which was a bunch of children, which I highly disagree with using children to push your political agenda. It's one of the things that really makes me angry, grinds my gears. A bunch of kids, two of them holding up a sign saying, "Your right to freedom of expression ends when it hurts other people's feelings and it gets offensive and it makes fun of our religious beliefs," something along those lines. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Freedom of speech does not end when it comes to your religious beliefs. No. Our rights don't end when it comes to offending Islam. Now, I don't think that was the majority of the people in the protest actually believe that. Now, there were lots of signs that were very anti-Western, anti-democratic, just, made no sense. That was one of them. But generally, when you would talk to people, and you could say, "Oh, they're lying," I don't think that's true. They would say, no, you have the right to freedom of speech. Now, if I were to steelman this protest, they were protesting two things primarily, okay? The number one thing what the protest was about is it was a protest against drawing Muhammad. That's really what the protest was. They were offended that people drew Muhammad, right? And the reason why France is the secondary thing, the two things that offended them the most were people drew Muhammad, and then when that person who drew Muhammad was decapitated, Emmanuel Macron linked the decapitation of a man who drew Muhammad to Islam. I think correctly. Now, they were very upset at those two things. Here is one of my biggest problems with the protest. And I saw this to be true by talking to people for about an hour there. The protest totally omits context. Totally omits context of everything. And I found it that when I started talking to people, a lot of them didn't know the actual context and the full events behind it. They just know, they were just sort of told this narrative, someone there was a violent thing and the French blamed it on Islam and they keep drawing Muhammad and this is bad, okay? A lot of them just didn't know what they were there for. So, and I had this where kids were giving me looks like, "Wait, this happened?" I'm like, "Yeah, ask your parents if this happened." So what happened is you had a terrorist attack against Charlie Hebdo years ago because they drew a picture of the Prophet Muhammad. Why do I keep calling him Prophet? They drew a picture of Muhammad. They do a lot of things. They offended Jews and Catholics. You can pull up all of Charlie Hebdo's catalog. It offends everyone across the board. One of the things they did is they drew Muhammad. Now, no Jews murdered them. No Catholics murdered them. No Hindus murdered them. They were murdered by two Muslims with Kalashnikovs, went to Charlie Hebdo office, pointed an AK-47 at one of the employees' head, made her open the door for the rest of them. They left her, went into the office with Kalashnikovs, and gunned down everyone they could, screaming Allahu Akbar. Then they were taken out by the police. They were screaming consistently. Their motive, they were Muslim. They said their motive for that attack was Islam. It was their motive, according to the perpetrators. You then had a copycat of that attack recently, last month. This is the instigating event to sort of this. So you had that was a worldwide news. Then there's a copycat attack because Charlie Hebdo still had not apologized for drawing cartoons. Two more terrorists, and then there was another terrorist attack. This terrorist actually called his family back in Pakistan, who were very proud of him, and his father said, "We're so proud of him, his actions will get the entire family into heaven." Okay? He said his motive was Islam. Now, this is the context, okay, in France. A teacher, Samuel Paty, decided to teach freedom of expression. He gave all the students a chance to leave the class before he showed the cartoons. He talked about what happened and the importance of free speech. Parents and Islamic organizations and religious leaders heard about what happened in that classroom. They whipped up a hate mob against this teacher. One terrorist beheaded him, screaming Allahu Akbar in public, publicly beheading him, screaming while he was beheading him that his motive was Islam. He was a Muslim and his motive was Islam. This is what he was screaming while committing these crimes. This is why it has something to do with Islam, right? And the other people there, when you say, "Oh no, these terrorist attacks had nothing to do with Islam," right? Well, you were probably there. You were protesting people drawing Muhammad and it offended you. Now you were saying, "Oh yes, peace, Islam is peace." but this is radical Islam, right? You were moderate Islam. You were offended. You used your words. Radical Islam. They were offended. They didn't use their words. They used violence. Oh, well, this has nothing to do with Islam. This is a horrible, horrible intellectual argument. So everyone who doesn't practice Islam the exact way you do is not a Muslim. There's no room for diversity. Every Muslim must believe everything and act exactly the way, it's ridiculous, okay? So just, they're not Muslim as soon as they commit a crime, silly, okay? Now, no one's making the point, and no one was saying that, all Islam is decapitating. No. But we're saying that act has something to do with Islam. And you saw that when I was explaining this to people, they started to realize, okay, yeah, the teacher might have had a point, okay? I actually had one guy admit who was against this, said, yeah, in this context, I would teach my class about this too. And I'm like, okay, great, because that's what this French teacher did. And what Emmanuel Macron did is he defended this teacher's right to teach this in class, and you're protesting that, right? So the reason why these protests are so bad, okay, and the reason why these protests are a negative on to society and a negative against Islam and a negative against the West is because these protests legitimize the ideology behind and the grievance that led to the murder. The number one bad thing here is someone was decapitated. However, these protests, by saying, hey, we shouldn't be drawing Muhammad and we shouldn't be linking Islamic terrorism to Islam, right? This is obfuscating. This enables the next attack, okay? Thousands and thousands and thousands of people have come out and publicly supported the beheading of this teacher on Islamic grounds. Iran, Pakistan, Turkey, these countries have done so, okay? Even these countries, okay? You have to look. Online, hundreds of thousands of people are supporting this terrorist attack, and they're supporting it because they view it to be in line with their version of Islam, okay? So this is where we are. So this is what I kind of gleaned from the protests is the real enemy here, as I say always with, Islam, the enemy of Islam is the white people. And I think this is really what we saw here too is it's a media problem, I think, primarily here. It's the fact that people can live in a world where they can just not be exposed to the whole story, where people can selectively cater their media, and with the corruption of mainstream media, you can get this narrative that, and I watched on the CBC, where you just say, someone was beheaded in France, Macron said this, and this happened, right? And you're like, that 2-minute segment, I can see if you don't know anything, how it's just like, people are drawing Prophet Muhammad, and Macron's linking things to Islam, and other Muslims are upset, and there's no sort of explaining, well, here's the context of Charlie Hebdo, and this, and here's the thousands of thing worldwide. And he goes, okay, so that's what the teacher was doing. Okay, it was in context. Now it's a bit different, right? Because now you just think, he was just showing Muhammad in class. Like, a lot of the people there, a lot of the Muslims there, a lot of them, just thought this teacher wanted to show cartoons of Muhammad in class just because he really hated Muslims. Okay? So that's not true. And I will say, anyone who wants to talk to me about this, I know I just recently made friends with Khalid Al-Kazaz on Twitter, and he promised to talk to me later, maybe after COVID. Khalid, if you want to talk, we can Zoom or whatever. I disagreed with Khalid Al-Kazaz's tweet condemning Aaron O'Toole for linking these attacks to Islam. I also, Khalid Al-Kazaz, he says I'm wrong when I said that the Mohammed Morsi government, which he is verified to be a part of by Twitter, was connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. He just says there was some Muslim Brotherhood people working with it. It was a large coalition. So I hope to have this conversation because maybe me, Wikipedia, New York Times, Washington Post, CBC, BBC, every major news outlet and international organization, maybe we're wrong and maybe you're right. So I'd love to have that conversation with anyone about, why you think there should be protesting against France and why there shouldn't be. So in total, I'd say for the hundreds of people who showed up, shame on all of you who brought your kids. Last thing is the sign. The worst sign I saw was, I saw 3 of them, and you can see on the stream. Only a united ummah, so like a caliphate of the united, can stop blaspheming or criticism of Prophet Muhammad. Basically, there were signs saying that only united as Muslims can we stop criticism of Muhammad. So clearly there were some signs there that was saying the goal here is actually to stop criticism of Muhammad. It's not to promote human rights. It's not to promote tolerance. It's like stop criticizing Muhammad, stop drawing Muhammad, and stop linking Islamic terrorism to Islam. That was the main goal. And yes, there's other things about peace and end Islamophobia, but those 2 narratives were present. and I think they undermine human rights going forward.